What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a bunch of toxic unprofessionalism going on in the NFL right now. You got Russell Wilson beefing with his former head coach, Sean Payton. Sean Payton was throwing some shade Russ away when he was praising Jaxson Dart. Russ caught it and he clapped back on X, called Sean Payton classless, claimed that he still is out there putting bounties on players' heads. And if that wasn't toxic enough for you, how about the owner of the Jets, Woody Johnson, putting all the blame on Justin Fields for the Jets' 0-7 start? We'll dive into those two toxic situations along with bouncing around the rest of the NFL. The Raiders are still stuck in this endless loop of mediocrity that they just can't seem to break out of. The Giants had the worst fourth quarter of coaching that you will ever witness, and somehow, some way, Brian Daboll still has a job. The Ravens are making some changes, but not the necessary changes needed to turn their season around. The Seahawks have been playing some fantastic football. The NFL is wide open, at least that's what everybody is claiming. So why can't we see Seattle playing for the Super Bowl this year? And one of you guys hit me up on Instagram in the DMs. You wanted to get my thoughts on Drake Maye, so I'll give my 2 cents on him as well. If you live, eat, breathe, and sleep football, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications so you don't miss when we drop new content. If you don't want your favorite team to have a fourth quarter collapse like what we just saw out of the Giants this past week, rate JT Sports 5 stars, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. JT Sports is available. The links are down in the pinned comment and description down below, and let's dive into it. Sean Payton and Russell Wilson have some serious beef going on right now. There's an unwritten rule in the NFL that coaches are never supposed to publicly criticize players, especially former ones, to the media. And Sean Payton, he crossed that line when he was praising Jaxson Dart and how well he played against his defense and how well he's looked up to this point this season. He also managed to throw shade at Russell Wilson. And what Sean Payton essentially was saying was that Jaxson Dart has played so well, he'd rather have saw Russell Wilson than see him, which I think everybody would rather play Russell Wilson at this stage of his career. He no longer is what he used to be 2 weeks ago when the Giants played the Eagles on Thursday Night Football. Jaxson Dart had to go into the medical tent for concussion protocol. Russ came in through one pass. It was a dirt ball, got booed by the entire stadium, and Brian Daboll was going absolutely berserk in the medical tent. Where's Jaxson Dart? Get him out there. I don't care if he has concussion now. We need him out there now. And that tells you everything that you need to know about how the league views Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is one of the most likable guys in the league in the eyes of the media and casual fans. But there's a split of players that are huge fans of Russell Wilson, like DK Metcalf, Bobby Wagner, and a good amount of players like Richard Sherman, Marshawn Lynch, KJ Wright, who aren't the biggest supporters of Russell Wilson. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I believe that Russell Wilson is a class act. I think that he's a good person. He's a former Walter Payton Man of the Year winner. He does right by his teammates, doesn't really say anything that causes unnecessary attention. For the most part, Russell Wilson is a solid dude, but I think why there's such a disconnect between Russell Wilson and his former teammates is he's not your typical guy in the locker room. He's not one of those dudes that's going to go out after the game and cahoot with the fellas. You know, he's a family man. He goes, he handles business on the field, and once it's over, he's going home to his beautiful wife and kids, and he's chilling with the fam. Sean Payton, when he first got to Denver, it was alleged that he had to make Russell Wilson more connected with the team. Russell Wilson, before Sean Payton arrived, he had his own locker, he had his own office, separate from the rest of the team. And what turns certain players off that have played with Russell Wilson is he felt he was above the rest of the team. And that's why they felt like Russell Wilson never felt like one of the fellas, because he was so disconnected from everybody else. And Russell Wilson, although he's a solid dude, he is a little bit weird in the sense. And normally your quarterback is able to be easily accessible to the rest of his teammates. Marshawn Lynch, though, when he tried to get in contact with Russell Wilson, when they were still balling with each other in Seattle, he had to go through Russell Wilson's agent or one of his representatives to get in contact with Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson kind of has a Hollywood feel to him. And that's why a good amount of former teammates don't really like him. And he wasn't the easiest player to coach as well. In Pittsburgh, him and Arthur Smith will constantly button heads. And Sean Payton, although he was unprofessional with how he went about taking his jabs at Russell Wilson, and no matter what people try to say, Sean Payton knew exactly what he was doing with his comments about Jaxson Dart. He was propping up Jaxson Dart, but tearing Russell Wilson down in his praise of Jaxson Dart in the process. And that's why Sean Payton's comments come off as unprofessional. But although Sean Payton's comments can be perceived as unprofessional, look, the truth hurts. Sean Payton is an old school coach, and he's not somebody that's going to beat around the bush when it comes to expressing how he feels about particular issues and particular players. And everything that Sean Payton has said in the past when it has come to criticizing former players and former coaches have been 100% factual. When he came out a few years ago, when he first took the Broncos job and criticized how bad of a job Nathaniel Hackett did with the offense, he was right. Look how bad the Jets offense was with Nathaniel Hackett calling the plays as the OC for the 2 years that he was there. With Zach Wilson and with the healthy Aaron Rodgers, the offense just wasn't good. With Russell Wilson, he hasn't been good since he got traded away from Seattle. And what Sean Payton said in his comments, in his shade of Russell Wilson, was essentially he'd rather have gone up against Russ than Jaxson Dart. And at this stage of Russ' career, everybody probably would want to go up against Russell Wilson. Now, prime Russell Wilson is a different story. And with how good Jaxson Dart has been, yeah, why didn't the New York Giants start him sooner? If Jaxson Dart was the week 1 starter, they probably aren't 2-5, and maybe they are slightly below 500 or at 500. But Russell Wilson, I don't think that he entirely deserved this. It was definitely uncalled for Sean Payton to take the shot at Russell Wilson that he did. And there's a bunch of shots that you can take at Sean Payton for the Bounty Gate scandal. But Sean Payton is going to be in the Hall of Fame. He's one of the greatest offensive minds of this generation. He's a Super Bowl champion. And contrary to popular belief, yes, Sean Payton has had success post Drew Brees. He just went to the playoffs last season with Bo Nix. And that was Bo Nix' first season replacing Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson is on his 3rd team in 3 years for a reason. He just isn't good anymore. And the hard reality that I've had to learn about life is nobody cares about how nice of a guy you are. Nobody cares about what you did in the past. When you're in a production-based business, your past and your character, nobody really cares about. That takes a back seat because everybody cares about production in the NFL. Can you throw the ball with accuracy? Can you throw the ball to the open guy? If you can, people are going to praise you. And if you can't, people are going to take whatever opportunity that they can to take shots at you. if they don't like you. And in the production-based business, when you can't produce at a certain level anymore, the NFL moves on. And your character, how nice of a guy you are, takes a back seat. So with the people out there that defend Russell Wilson entirely and make it seem as if he's an angel, you're a little bit delusional. There is a little bit of truth to what Marshawn Lynch and Richard Sherman have said about Russell Wilson. During his time in Seattle, Russell Wilson, the better he got, the bigger his ego got. And that's when he became a Hollywood quarterback that guys in the locker room somewhat started to despise. Now, is there a little bit of jealousy involved in there? I believe so. But Sean Payton's comments about Jaxson Dart using him to bring down Russell Wilson was unnecessary, but it was 100% the truth. Russ isn't good. And if the Giants would have just started Jaxson Dart week 1, they would have been in a much better spot than where they find themselves in right now. Follow us on all social media platforms. You can find us on Instagram at JT_, on X at JT__. TikTok, you can find us at JT__ as well. So you can stay up to date with everything that's going on with the JT Sports Podcast, along with updates and bonus content as well. Go ahead, follow us on Instagram and X. Links are down in the description and pinned comment section below. The owner of the New York Jets, Woody Johnson, made some really out-of-pocket comments about Justin Fields. He voiced his support of Aaron Glenn despite the Jets' 0-7 start to the season, and he put all the blame on Justin Fields. He said people can blame the coach all they want, but when your quarterback rating looks like a golf score, it's tough to compete. You would like to see a quarterback out there who can complete the forward pass. And look, these comments were definitely out of pocket by Woody Johnson, but he's the owner. He's the guy cutting the checks for all of these players. So he definitely has the authority to come out and publicly trash one of the quarterbacks on his roster. And I'm with you when you're right. And Woody Johnson, he is right about Justin Fields. Justin Fields has been completely atrocious this season. It's like the brother is just scared to throw the football to an open receiver. And the thing with Justin Fields is he's a true running quarterback. He's not a dual threat quarterback. A dual threat quarterback is a guy like Lamar, Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. They can throw the ball from within the pocket, but they also can use their legs to make plays as well. Justin Fields is just a running quarterback. He's Cordell Stewart 2.0. If you're not utilizing Justin Fields' athleticism, you're not going to have an effective offense. And what's strange is the Jets knew what they were getting in Justin Fields. They knew that he had a lot of limitations throwing the football. So it doesn't make a lot of sense why you will put a limited passer in the offense that involves him dropping back the pass a lot. If you're going to get Justin Fields and you're going to make him your starting quarterback, you have to completely change your offense around him. You have to run Justin Fields like he's a running back. You should be running Justin Fields 15, 20 times a game. You should be running quarterback power, design quarterback runs, RPOs, read options with Justin Fields. And unfortunately, the Jets, we haven't seen them do that often with Justin Fields this season. And the Jets, although them being 0-7 largely is due to the bad play of Justin Fields, they did a poor job of tailoring the offense around Justin Fields' strengths. You don't ask Justin Fields to be a drop back passer when you know he's a limited thrower. You should be utilizing Justin Fields' athleticism way more than what you have. And the Jets were not going to be a good team this year, but they rolled the dice on Justin Fields with hopes that maybe they could get a little juice out of him. You've seen guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Geno Smith revive their careers over the last few seasons. So I felt it was a worthy dice roll for the Jets to go ahead and try to see if they can get a little bit out of Justin Fields that the previous teams that he has played for have been unable to. Unfortunately, it's just been a giant mess. And Aaron Glenn, I feel he deserves a lot more blame than what Woody Johnson is willing to give him. The clock management that we saw before halftime across the pond against the Denver Broncos should have got him fired right then and there. How are you going to call a fake punt and then run out the clock? That's just conservative and safe coaching. And if you didn't trust Justin Fields, then you should have just went ahead and benched him. And we saw Justin Fields struggle throwing the ball in the preseason, and the Jets made no adjustments to the offense. They also have a first-time offensive coordinator that looks like he probably is going to end up getting the boot once this season is over. Aaron Glenn is just as responsible for the Jets' 0-7 start as what Justin Fields is. And for Woody Johnson to not hold Aaron Glenn accountable, it kind of shows that he's trying to save face with the rest of the league because he listens to these radio shows. He listens to the ESPN and FS1 talk shows that criticize the Jets for how dysfunctional the front office is. And that all starts with him. It starts from the guy at the top and it all trickles down. And the Jets have been so bad for so long because of Woody Johnson. So he's trying to save a little bit of face, and he's trying to give Aaron Glenn his vote of confidence. And even if the Jets end up going 1-16, 0-17, Aaron Glenn deserves another year as the head coach. It took Dan Campbell a year or two to get the ball running with the Detroit Lions. And I do believe that Aaron Glenn is somewhat changing the culture. There is a different vibe with the Jets that we haven't really felt in the last couple of years. It looks like the players really do love Aaron Glenn, but we need to see more out of Aaron Glenn as far as improvements that he needs to make to be a successful head coach in this league, because you're not going to win a lot of ball games with the atrocious clock management that he has had so far during his tenure with the Jets, and you're definitely not going to win a lot of games as a defensive-minded coach with a pure running quarterback. And if they wanted to have a drop-back, pass-rack quarterback, they could have went after Kirk Cousins. They could have went after Sam Darnold. There were way better options out there than Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, I don't really feel like he deserved this. Yes, he deserves criticism for his play, but you could have criticized him behind the scenes. You didn't have to embarrass him. Justin Fields is a class act as a quarterback. He has handled this situation as good as what anybody possibly could. He accepts the fact that he hasn't played good. He accepts his benching. He definitely understands that it's production-based business, and he hasn't had the production necessary for the Jets to win. And he understands that he is a large part of why this season has gone so bad as what it has for this organization. But for a guy like Justin Fields that is just so well liked by teammates, coaches, it hurts to see him get crushed by Woody Johnson like this. It really does. And Woody Johnson, I get what he was trying to do. You were trying to save face. You were trying to prove that you're not this Looney Tune owner that the media portrays you out to be, but you still look like a Looney Tune in the end, because when you're publicly trashing a former starting quarterback of yours this kind of fashion, it still makes you look really bad. The locker room, although they knew that Justin Fields probably should have been benched, they're not going to take highly to the comments that he just made. These are the kind of comments that show why the Jets have been the organization that they've been for so many years. Dysfunctional, unorganized, and just not really professional. And Sean Payton's comments, you can say were unprofessional, but these comments from Woody Johnson were more unprofessional and more toxic than his, because this is the owner. This is the guy cutting the checks. And yes, you want to see more ROI from a guy that you're paying $20 million to on a yearly basis. But you don't have to crush him in this fashion. It just doesn't look good in the eyes of the rest of the locker room and the players. And even Aaron Glenn probably should pull Woody Johnson aside and say, hey, man, like, I can't change the culture if you're just going to crush every single player that doesn't play up to par. I'm with Woody Johnson when he's right. And he was right about how atrocious Justin Fields has been this year. But you never crush a player this way because you can easily lose the team. And this is how guys start revolting against the owner. They start revolting against the coaching staff. You don't really do anybody any favors by making these comments. Brian Daboll should be fired. I don't know for the life of me how Brian Daboll still has a job after the terrible display of coaching that he showed in the fourth quarter against the Broncos. They were up 26-8 with 10 minutes to go in the fourth. And then he makes a boneheaded decision with 5 minutes left, up 10 points on 3rd and 5 to ask his rookie quarterback to throw the football against the best defense in the NFL. And of course, it ends up resulting in a disaster. It gets intercepted. And that play right there is what won the game for the Denver Broncos. Now, you can blame the defensive coordinator, the field goal kicker for missing 2 PATs, but all of this falls on Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll was the one who hired that defensive coordinator that allowed the Broncos to drop 33 points on them in the fourth quarter. Brian Daboll was the one who decided to stick with that field goal kicker despite him missing 2 PATs and also a missed PAT in the game before this one. Every loss, every win, all falls on the head coach. When you win, the head coach gets all the praise. But when you lose, the head coach gets all the criticism. And Brian Daboll is dead weight for the New York Giants right now. He shouldn't be allowed to have his job saved by the greatness of Jaxson Dart, because it's pretty easy to tell that Jaxson Dart is going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I'm going to come out and flat out say it. I was wrong about Jaxson Dart. Now, I never thought that Jaxson Dart was going to be a scrub, but I never thought that Jaxson Dart would be able to instill the hope that he has injected into this Giants organization like the way he has so far. And Brian Daboll is a large part of the success that Jaxson Dart has had. He's a brilliant offensive coordinator, but he's just a horrible head coach. And in spite of how good Jaxson Dart will become, he's not going to win a lot of games for the New York Giants if Brian Daboll has the terrible situational football that we just saw against the Denver Broncos in the fourth quarter. And remember last year, when Daniel Jones got scapegoated for the struggles that the Giants offense was having, Malik Neighbors came out and said that it's not the quarterback. Essentially, he indirectly was saying that you need to blame the coaching staff. And the coaching staff is still the reason why the Giants are underperforming. You have a way better team than what your record shows. You're 2-5, but you are a team that should at least be and playoff contention, at least competing for the 7th or 6th spot in the NFC playoffs. But the Giants won't be able to do that because the awful clock management of Brian Daboll, his poor understanding of situational football, and just putting too much on Jaxson Dart's shoulders. And when he went into that blue medical tent 2 weeks ago on Thursday Night Football against the Eagles, and he was snapping on the doctors, oh, get him out there now. I don't care if he has a concussion. We need that brother on the field. My job is on the line. That perfectly shows why the Giants are not going to go far, even if Jaxson Dart continues to develop at this rapid pace and he ends up being an elite quarterback 2-3 years from now. If you have Brian Daboll still as the head coach, you're not going to be good because he's holding back this organization. Good quarterbacks can overcome incompetent coaching. And that's what the Giants are asking Jaxson Dart to do with Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll is 100% responsible for the collapse that the Giants just had this past Sunday against the Broncos. Don't give me that BS about the DC, the kicker, when all of these factors were decisions that Brian Daboll made. He allowed that kicker to go out there and miss those 2 PATs despite missing a few kicks throughout the season prior. And he knew that the defensive coordinator wasn't that good. You had Wink Martindale, who was much better than what you currently have now, but Wink Martindale and Brian Daboll didn't get along. And Wheat Martindale, on his way exiting the Giants organization, he cussed out Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll, he, throughout the years, hasn't gotten along with a bunch of assistants on his coaching staff. He's butted heads with a few players. And when the Giants made a decision to move on from Daniel Jones, you felt really good about it. You felt that Daniel Jones was just a lost cause and he was a scrub. But you fast forward to now, the Colts have the best record in the NFL with the same quarterback that Brian Daboll scapegoated, that said that he's going to cost me my job. I need to move on from him. And yet you get what Brian Daboll perceives to be an upgrade from Daniel Jones and Jaxson Dart, and yet you still have the same results. So it's not the quarterback, exactly what Malik Neighbor said. It's the coaching staff. Brian Daboll should be fired right now. He should have been fired as soon as that game against the Broncos was over. He should have got fired at the airport. He shouldn't have been allowed to fly back with the team. There's no way that you can be up by 3 possessions and still lose the game and be able to keep your job with how bad the Giants have been under Brian Daboll since he went to the playoffs with Daniel Jones in his first season. This is a way better team than what the record shows. Joe Schoen did a fantastic job of putting together a team that's built to be competitive. Nobody expected for the Giants to be able to beat the Philadelphia Eagles the way that they did 2 weeks ago on Thursday night. They manhandled the Eagles as a 7.5-point underdog. So the team obviously has the talent to be a potential playoff team, but they just aren't getting the proper coaching to maximize the potential of this roster and the upside that Jaxson Dart has. And until the Giants fire Brian Daboll, no matter how good Jaxson Dart continues to play, they're going to continue to lose games in embarrassing fashion like they did against the Broncos because Brian Daboll just sucks as a head coach. You're up 10. 5 minutes to go, 3rd and 5. The Broncos have one last timeout to use. And instead of putting the ball in the hands of Cam Scalaboo, your workhorse, power horse back, you decide to put it in the hands of a young quarterback facing one of the toughest defenses in the league. And it's no surprise the Giants end up losing that game because Brian Daboll is putting all his eggs in one basket. He's basically saying, Jaxson Dart, carry this team. That's not what you ask a rookie quarterback in development to do. When you put everything on Jaxson Dart's shoulders, of course you're going to have some big mistakes that cost you the game because he's a young quarterback in development. He's going to have some bad lapses in judgment, like what he did in that 3rd and 5. But he never should have been put in that situation to begin with. You're an offensive-minded coach. Brian Daboll should have known better. And Brian Daboll should be fired right now. I'm still lost for words for how he still has a job with how the Broncos just dropped 33 points in the 4th quarter on him and hit the walk-off game win in the process. That was atrocious coaching that we saw out of the Giants this past weekend. Defensive-minded coaches can still win Super Bowls in the NFL. And Mike Macdonald is about to prove that. Mike Macdonald is still the runaway favorite to win Coach of the Year. The Seahawks right now look like the team to beat in the NFC. They are the only team in this conference that not only has a top 5 offense, but a top 5 defense as well. Mike Macdonald's defense has only given up 20-plus points once this season, and that was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They currently are 6th in points per game allowed. They have the #1 run defense, and they only are giving up 4.7 yards per play, which is top 5 in the league. His defense has been outstanding, and he's done an incredible job of having the Seahawks ready to play in big games on the road. He's 10-1 on the road since the start of last season. The Seattle Seahawks are good enough with how well Sam Darnold has been playing, with how great this defense has looked under Mike Macdonald. They can beat any team in the NFC come playoff time. They can beat the Philadelphia Eagles. They can beat Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, and the Rams. They can beat Jordan Love and the Green Bay Packers. Right now, the Seahawks are the best team in the NFC. Sam Darnold can win a Super Bowl with how well this defense has looked. This is a complete team. And yes, offensive-minded coaches have taken over the NFL, but Mike Macdonald is the Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan of defensive-minded coaches. And defensive-minded coaches can still win in this league as long as they make the right hires at offensive coordinator and have stable quarterback play. Look at what Todd Bowles has done with the Buccaneers. Todd Bowles, I still think that he's a mid coach, but I have to give him credit when credit is due. The brother has had to find 3 offensive coordinators for 3 straight seasons and hasn't had a drop-off on that side of the ball yet. Baker Mayfield just continues to ascend every year under Todd Bowles. Todd Bowles, Sean McDermott have all shown the ability that as long as you have a good offensive coordinator and competent veteran quarterback play, that you can win as a defensive-minded head coach. DeMeco Ryans has had some moderate success being a head coach of the Texans. Unfortunately, despite him getting quarterback right, he just can't seem to get the offensive coordinator right. But when he does, he'll be probably able to get the Texans in that Super Bowl conversation. Defensive-minded coaches in the NFL are not dead, and Mike Macdonald is proving us why that's the case. Look how much the Ravens have dropped off ever since they lost Mike Macdonald. You can't even recognize the Ravens anymore. The Ravens have always been built on having a great defense, and ever since Mike Macdonald has been gone, that franchise has spiraled. And as good as what Lamar Jackson is, if he doesn't have a defense that can at least give him an opportunity to win, the Ravens have no chance at winning a Super Bowl with him. Sean McDermott has had Josh Allen. He's had a bunch of good OCs. And the Bills have been in the Super Bowl conversation for every year that Josh Allen has been in his prime, which I'll probably say the last 5 to 6 years. So we've seen Sean McDermott have success. We've also seen Todd Bowles have success. Mike Macdonald could be that guy that finally brings back defensive-minded coaches getting more opportunities. Like Robert Saleh, I feel he would be a really good head coach again as long as he was given a solid quarterback and a good offensive coordinator. And that very well could be the case. If he gets hired by the Tennessee Titans and Mike McDaniel gets fired by the Dolphins, all he has to do is hire Mike McDaniel as his offensive coordinator, and boom, problem solved. Look at Mike Vrabel right now. Mike Vrabel has done a fantastic job turning around the New England Patriots. And he's a defensive-minded coach. He couldn't really get the offense right in his final years down there in Tennessee. Once he lost LaFleur and Arthur Smith, the offense went downhill. But with Josh McDaniels and Drake Maye, you see the success that Mike Vrabel is having. So defensive-minded coaches are not going out of style. As long as you can get certain parts right with quarterback and the guys on your staff, you can have success as a defensive-minded coach. And right now, the Seahawks are my pick to make it out of the NFC. I can't really think of too many teams right now that have been as dominant on both sides of the football as what the Seahawks have been. They are 5th in points per game on offense, averaging around 28 per contest, and their defense is 6th in points per game allowed. You're not going to find too many teams that are this good both ways as what Seattle is. Mike McDaniel, look, he's a great offensive mind, but he's not a great leader of men. He's not able to win big games, especially the ones that he has to go on the road to win. Mike McDaniel, if he was just an offensive coordinator and he was paired with a really good defensive-minded coach, that defensive-minded coach will have a lot of success. Mike Macdonald, credit to him for being able to be willing to make changes when changes needed to be made last year. Ryan Grubb didn't work out. Most defensive-minded coaches would have held on to Ryan Grubb and they would have given him a second season. Mike Macdonald said, no, I'm finna go in a different direction. I'm going to get Clint Kubiak, who is a perfect fit for the kind of quarterback that Sam Darnold is. Big, mobile, super athletic, really good throwing the football on the run. Yes, he has his fair share of turnovers, but with how great this defense is, it can bail out Sam Darnold if he has a few games when he's just turning the football over nonstop. But for the most part, I think that Seattle right now looks like the team to beat in the NFC. And although they don't have the best record in this conference, by the time we get to around Thanksgiving, more people are going to start realizing just how great of a head coach Mike Macdonald truly is. He's not just a great defensive mind. He's just a great all-around head coach because he makes changes when they had to be made. He also makes very great adjustments, not just in game, but after losses as well. If something isn't working, he doesn't continue to stick with it. He makes changes. So I look at how well the Seahawks are playing right now. I'm picking them to make it out of the NFC and play Kansas City in the Super Bowl this year. And they just might be able to beat Kansas City. Mike Macdonald, with the kinds of looks and simulated pressures, exotic blitzes that he likes to throw at quarterbacks, I can see him out coaching Andy Reid with the Lombardi on the line in a few months from now. If you don't want the starting quarterback for your favorite football team to play like Anthony Richardson, give JT Sports a 5-star review. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from, JT Sports is available. The links are down in the description and pinned comment below. I thought the Raiders were going to be a competitive football team this year with the hiring of Pete Carroll as the head coach and bringing in John Spyatek as the GM, trading for Geno Smith. I felt all of the parts were there for the Raiders to be a team that could win 7-8 games, pull off a few upsets, and be able to hang around with teams like Kansas City and some of the better teams in the NFL. But that has not been the case. And the Raiders have been just as bad, if not worse, this season than what they were with Antonio Pierce. And if the Raiders were going to continue to play the way that they have so far this season, they might as well have just stuck with Antonio Pierce. Antonio Pierce had the Raiders in more close games than what Pete Carroll has had this team in this season. The Raiders' point differential under Antonio Pierce last year was 7.4. With Pete Carroll, it's gone up to 11. So you're losing games by 2 possessions versus when you had AP as your head coach, only losing games by 1 possession. And when you hire a 74-year-old head coach, you kind of expect an instant turnaround. Now, of course, you were never going to make it to the playoffs. The roster just isn't that good. But defensively, the Raiders have been even worse on this side of the ball than what they were last season. And Pete Carroll is supposed to be a defensive-minded coach. So you got an aging head coach along with a quarterback that has led the league in turnovers and has gifted 44 points to the opposition. This has been a complete train wreck. And right now, the Raiders have more questions about the future than they have answers. What are you going to do with Geno Smith? Geno Smith is grits. He's making more money than Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Daniel Jones. And not only has he been worse than those guys, but he's been the bottom 4 quarterback in the league. And you just can't easily move on from him due to the cap hit that you're going to have to take by releasing him, and also the amount of guaranteed money that you've given him. And I believe when Aiden O'Connell is able to return from his injury, he should be starting over Geno Smith. At least Aiden O'Connell doesn't turn the football over at the rate that Geno Smith does. Now, you can say that Geno Smith hasn't had all of his weapons. Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers have missed a significant amount of time this season. That still is no excuse for how bad Geno Smith has played. Geno Smith was supposed to stabilize the quarterback position for the Raiders this year, and he's done all but that. And now the Raiders are going to be right back at the drawing board this offseason trying to find a solution to their quarterback problem that they've dealt with ever since they shipped away Derek Carr and they pushed him away. Are you going to draft a quarterback this year? You have no choice but to. And the Raiders weren't expecting to have to draft a young quarterback having Geno Smith. Geno Smith was at least supposed to give them 2-3 years of consistent quarterback play before they even entertained the idea of drafting a young quarterback to sit behind him. But now when next year's draft comes around, no matter how bad the quarterback class is, you got to draft the quarterback in the first round. You just have to, whether that be Mendoza, Jeremiah, Dante Moore. The Raiders can't go into the 2026 season without a young quarterback sitting behind Geno Smith. Geno Smith has been atrocious. And when you got a struggling defense, having Geno and all of these turnovers doesn't do them any favors as well. And you're entertaining the idea of possibly shipping away Max Crosby, which should never even be brought up. Max Crosby wants to retire a Las Vegas Raider. You don't see too many players this dedicated to an organization that has been in the gutter for as long as what the Raiders have. He has the Raiders tattooed on him. So Max Crosby should never be thought about in trade talks. This should be the only untouchable player that the Raiders have, not named Ashton Jeanty. And you drive Ashton Jeanty with your first round pick and you put him behind one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. And then you had Chip Kelly trying to tweak with his stance when the stance didn't need to be tweaked at all. You see, ever since Ashton Jeanty has gone back to his Michael Myers stance, he's been crushing everybody when the offensive line has been able to give him some running lanes to run through. So the Raiders right now, their future looks really horrendous at the moment. You got a 74-year-old head coach who has this team far away from competing. Right now, the Raiders are not only the worst team in the AFC West, but they're a bottom 4 team in the NFL in terms of talent. You don't have a lot of high-end players at a bunch of positions. And even though you got a lot of cap space and a lot of money to spend in free agency next year, there's no guarantee that guys are going to want to come play for the Raiders. There's no guarantee that you're going to hit on a bunch of those free agency signings. And even if you are able to significantly improve this team, you could still be the worst team in this division because the Chiefs have reloaded and they're as good as what they've been in a very long time. And that's scary because they've been to the AFC Championship for a decade at this point. And the past 3 seasons were the worst that the Chiefs were ever going to look. They fixed the offensive line. They got the receiving core in check. And they got a healthy Rashee Rice. And Mahomes is back playing MVP football again. The Chargers would have been a lot better than what they are right now had it not be for the injury bug just completely destroying their offensive line and ravaging their defense. And the Broncos are 5-2. Most of their team is fairly young, and they got a lot of money to spend in free agency next year as well, with them having Bo Nix on a rookie deal. So even if you make a lot of investment into this team next offseason, there still is no guarantee that that's going to be enough to get you into the playoffs when you have a head coach that just looks like his best days are behind him. If you specialize in a particular side of the football as a head coach, and that happens to be the worst area of your team, you're not a good coach. Pete Carroll is no longer a good coach. You can make all these excuses in the world. We don't have this. We don't have that. Look what Robert Saleh and the 49ers are doing. Down there, 2 best players, and Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. Those are 2 of the best players in the league at their respective positions, and yet their defense still hasn't missed a beat in spite of those losses. Because Robert Saleh is a good defensive coordinator. Maybe the Raiders should fire Pete Carroll after this season and hire Robert Saleh, because he seems like he has a better understanding on defense and what makes a great defense than what Pete Carroll does. And when Pete Carroll got pushed out of Seattle, their defense was one of the worst in the NFL. The Seahawks defense has been bottom 5 the last couple of years that Pete Carroll was there. So I never really understood the hiring of Pete Carroll, but I got behind it because when you've been in the gutter as long as what the Raiders have, a guy like Pete Carroll that has this uppity-go attitude, that's very energetic, he's easy to root for. He's easy to rally behind. But the Raiders won the offseason, but the offseason hype isn't playing out how it was supposed to on the field. And I'm not saying that I expected for the Raiders to be a playoff team, but I thought this would be a team that would be competitive. I wasn't expecting them to get blown out by Kansas City. Last year, Antonio Pierce had this team really close to beating Kansas City if it wasn't for a botched exchange between Aiden O'Connell and the center, they probably end up winning that game on Black Friday. There were a bunch of close games that the Raiders had the opportunity to win with Antonio Pierce. And if he was given a second season, you would have to think that maybe this team would have been in much better shape than what it currently is right now. Coming off a much-needed bye week, the Ravens have removed all distractions from their locker room in order to turn their season around. They got rid of the ping pong table. They put the PS5 and the Xbox One in the closet. They got rid of the basketball hoops. They have removed everything but what's necessary in order to save this season, which is removing Zach Orr from his duties as defensive coordinator. It rubbed me the wrong way how John Harbaugh a few weeks ago threw Todd Monken on the bus in spite of the offense not being the issue. How much better can the play calling get when you're averaging nearly 30 points per game, and yet you're going to have all the confidence in the world and the defensive coordinator that's given up as many points on defense as what you're scoring on offense? You can't expect to win a bunch of games scoring 30 points per game and giving up 30 on the other end. And Lamar Jackson coming back fully healthy is not going to be enough for the Ravens to salvage this season in terms of being able to get hot and make a run in the playoffs. The Ravens, the furthest they're going to go this year is the divisional round. They don't have a good coaching staff. And getting rid of the ping pong table, the video game consoles, and the basketball hoops is not what needed to change in Baltimore. What needs to change in Baltimore is what the Ravens are unwilling to change, which is the coaching staff. John Harbaugh, Zach Orr, they need to pack their bags and they need to go. John Harbaugh is one of the longest tenured coaches in the NFL. But the longer he's been in Baltimore, the more disappointing this team has started to become. He is solely still a head coach because of Lamar Jackson. If it wasn't for Lamar Jackson during his rookie season coming in and saving his job, he would be unemployed right now. At least not the head coach of the Ravens. And imagine if the Ravens would have moved on from John Harbaugh last year and hired Mike Macdonald. You feel really good about their chances winning the Super Bowl if Mike Macdonald is the head coach as opposed to John Harbaugh. Look how good the Seahawks have looked these past 2 years with Mike Macdonald as their head coach. Sam Darnold has played great football. The defense has been outstanding. Meanwhile, Zach Orr was unable to maintain what Mike Macdonald gifted him, which is one of the most talented defenses in the league and a scheme that was wildly successful. So how is it that the Ravens have dropped off so much and yet they still have the same core components responsible for the struggles that they've had for over the last 5-6 years? Lamar Jackson is not holding the Ravens back from winning the Super Bowl. I get really sick and tired of having to defend Lamar Jackson for why he hasn't been able to get over the hump and win a Lombardi trophy. It's the same problem that the Bills have. The Bills and the Ravens both need to move on from their current head coaches. Sean McDermott has gotten the most out of the Buffalo Bills that he possibly can, and John Harbaugh has gotten the most out of the Ravens with Lamar Jackson as he possibly can. It's time to move on. Both the Bills and the Ravens have peaked with their current regimes at head coach. And even though you're making it to the playoffs every year, you're coming really close to getting over the hump, it still isn't good enough. And the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and get the same results. What is removing video games and the ping pong table and the basketball hoops going to do to help the Ravens turn their season around? Because none of that stuff has any correlation to the bad play calling that we've seen on the defense side of the football. It's the ping pong table, the one who's having all these blown coverages. It's the ping pong table responsible for Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers having all of these costly fumbles. The Ravens just are not a fundamentally sound football team. And that all starts with the head coach. You can blame Lamar Jackson all you want to, but when you have an elite quarterback like Lamar Jackson and the team continuously comes up short in the postseason, that's a coaching problem. That's a you problem. And the expectations for the Ravens were so high that now we're getting to a point midway through this season, we're asking ourselves, are the Ravens even going to be able to put themselves in position to get into the playoffs? Because, yeah, your schedule looks really easy and really favorable coming off a bye, but with how bad your defense has looked, there's no guarantee that you're going to beat the Bears, that you're going to beat the Dolphins, that you're going to be able to beat the Steelers, the Packers, or any of the other teams that you have coming up down the stretch. Yeah, you get a few guys back healthy, Roquan, Marlowe, Jair Alexander, but even when those guys were healthy at the start of this season, the defense was still underperforming. The Ravens' change is not removing ping pong tables and video game consoles and basketball hoops. The change that needed to be made was at head coach and at defensive coordinator. And I'm not saying that John Harbaugh needs to be fired right now, but Zach Orr definitely could use demotion. And at the end of the season, the Ravens ownership and their general manager, EDC, they're going to have a really harsh conversation about this team and the trajectory of this team under John Harbaugh. You can be a good head coach and still peak. We saw Andy Reid get fired by the Philadelphia Eagles and going to have a lot of success with the Kansas City Chiefs. John Harbaugh could be a great fit for the Tennessee Titans. He's a great culture builder, but he's not what the Ravens and Lamar Jackson need to get to the next step. And I still don't see all of these changes in the locker room being able to help the Ravens take back the AFC North. Unless Aaron Rodgers gets injured, the Steelers are not going to lose this division. Hell, I believe that the Bengals have a better shot at winning the AFC North than what the Ravens do, because at least their defense has shown the ability to get key stops. The Ravens have one of the most talented rosters in the NFL, one of the most talented defenses in the NFL, and yet they're underperforming. But the changes that John Harbaugh felt needed to be made was getting rid of all the recreational stuff. Stuff that was going to help guys unwind and relax. You can play video games at Lamar's house. Hey, we got PS5, Xbox One, Madden night at my house tonight. Oh, we're playing ping pong table at Marlon Humphrey's night. Cool. We're there with it. You know, all those other extracurricular stuff, those players can still do on their free time. But I guess, you know, if you're at the Ravens facilities, they want you to be locked in on the games, but yet I see Marlon Humphrey going live after the game. You know, like Lamar said last year, you know, bro, like we barely won this game, bro. You should be locked in. You should be focused. That all comes down to the head coach. When the team isn't playing fundamentally sound football, that all falls on the head coach. Eventually, the Ravens are going to realize that the change that needs to be made is not getting rid of the ping pong tables and the video game consoles and the basketball hoops. It is getting rid of Zach Orr along with John Harbaugh. If you ever get bored during the middle of the day and you're trying to talk some football, join the JT Sports Discord server, man. Link is down in the description and pinned comment below. We're trying to talk some ball with you, man. We want to hear from you. Go ahead and join the JT Sports Discord server. All the links are in the description and pinned comment section below. Drake Maye has been the second best quarterback in the NFL right now. He has a 13-2 touchdown interception ratio. He's second on the Patriots in rushing yards. He's completing 75% of his passes, the highest completion percentage in the league, throwing to a Stephon Diggs coming off an ACL injury, Kayshon Boutte being his number 2 option, and a below average run game with a ass offensive line that has allowed the second most sacks in the NFL. Drake Maye is the front runner for NFL MVP. He is the definition of what it means to be the most valuable player. He's carrying this Patriots offense. I was always a big believer in Drake Maye coming out of North Carolina. I felt that he should have been drafted over Jaden Daniels. Those very good deep balls with very good ball placement, really good athleticism. He's like baby Josh Allen. And it's not ironic that he actually ended up getting the dub over Josh Allen on Sunday Night Football not too long ago. Drake Maye's dominance has been the biggest surprise in the NFL. He's the MVP candidate that nobody expected. The expectations were that Drake Maye would be okay, but he wouldn't be better than Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams. Hell, even some folks thought that Michael Penix and Bo Nix would be better than Drake Maye. But right now, Drake Maye has been playing out his body. And he currently has the Patriots in first place in the AFC East. And I could very well see this team getting the 1 seed in the AFC this year. Because although the offense has had a bunch of limitations around Drake Maye that he's been able to overcome, at least they've been able to do him the solid of giving him a really good defense. Drake Maye is the prime example of what you expect from a guy that you invest a first-round pick into at quarterback. And for all of you guys who keep making these excuses for Trevor Lawrence and Kyler Murray, look at what Drake Maye's doing right now. He doesn't have a great team around him. He has a good enough coaching staff that has been able to help him in his development, but he's been carrying this team. You take Drake Maye off the Patriots, the ground game is bottom 3 in the league, and the pass attack pretty much would be non-existent. Because anybody else throwing to a receiving core led by Stephon Diggs, Cardi B's, baby daddy as their number one at 30-something years old, and Kayshon Boutte would not be putting up the numbers that Drake Maye currently is. Drake Maye is putting up as good as numbers as guys like Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Josh Allen, Lamar, with a way worse situation than what those guys have. I've been nothing short of impressed with how Drake Maye has played this year. Drake Maye is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. I've always been a huge fan of Drake Maye. I've been watching Drake Maye ever since his first season starting at North Carolina. I am a college football junkie. So when I saw that the Patriots drafted Drake Maye, I was like, as long as they can give him a competent coaching staff, he's going to be a great quarterback. And boy, has he been that and then some. His ascension to elite status has been very random, and it's happened pretty much overnight. And the catalyst for this mainly is due to them bringing back Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator. Now, the biggest concern was that, okay, you hired Mike Vrabel, who, yeah, we knew he was a solid coach with the Tennessee Titans, but what got him fired was the incompetence of the offense. Well, it helps that you reunite with Josh McDaniels, who isn't a good head coach, but he's a really good coordinator. And Josh McDaniels is probably never going to get another head coaching gig again. So you're going to have Josh McDaniels for the long run until he retires with Drake Maye. I'm not saying that the Patriots are going to be Super Bowl contenders this year, because I'm still picking the Kansas City Chiefs to make it out of the AFC. But I could definitely see them in the AFC Championship, or at least making it to the divisional round. Their offensive line isn't good enough to be a Super Bowl contender. But Drake Maye has been able to elevate this team in spite of the shortcomings that they have at certain positions. And that is the prime example of what you expect from somebody that you draft as high as what you took Drake Maye. Drake Maye is able to overcome the Band-Aids or the limitations that the Patriots have due to how good he is. This is what a franchise quarterback looks like. This is what an elite quarterback is supposed to be. Take notes, Jaguars fans. For all of you guys who defend Trevor Lawrence, compare him to Drake Maye. What's the difference between Drake Maye's situation and Trevor Lawrence's situation? Trevor Lawrence, his offensive line isn't that great, and yet he's struggling. Drake Maye's offensive line is second in sacks per game allowed, and yet he has the best touchdown to interception ratio in the league, right behind Stafford and Patrick Mahomes. Drake Maye is doing more with less compared to a guy in Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray. So for everybody that keeps making these excuses for these former first-round picks that they have as their starting quarterbacks right now, Drake Maye is making them look really bad. Really bad. This has been the second best quarterback in the NFL from start to finish. Other than Mahomes, I'm taking Drake Maye over Lamar, Josh Allen, Matthew Stafford, because look what he's doing right now. He's second on the team in rushing yards. He has the highest completion percentage in the NFL at 75%, with Cardi B's baby daddy, Kayshon Boutte as his 2 top targets in the passing game, a non-existent offensive line, and a below-average ground game, and yet he's putting up godly numbers right now.